Hi, welcome to our mock town meeting demonstration.
I'm David Horton, mock town meeting moderator, and I'd like to welcome all the representatives who are here with us this evening. And I'd like to describe how mock town meeting will proceed. During mock town meeting, the clerk will read the motion, and the proponent will move its adoption by offering "I so move." Representatives will line up, will be able to comment on the motion, lining up at the yes, no, and question microphones. There's also a microphone for citizens who are not town meeting representatives, and citizens are very welcome to offer their thoughts and opinions about a particular article. The only reservation is that only town meeting representatives or mock town meeting representatives are permitted to vote, but citizens may offer their opinions. When we discuss a motion, representatives will move to the yes, no, or question microphones, and you will wait to be recognized by the moderator. I will say, for example, I recognize Mr. Freeman at the yes microphone, and Mr. Freeman will respond with, "Mr. Moderator, I am Larry Friedman from Precinct X." I believe now we're ready to begin, and I'm delighted that we are all present and ready to go. The warrant is now open on Article 1. The motion is the one you see before you, and I recognize Jim Austin, who will read the motion for Article 1.
The article is the one before you. It shall be moved that the town of Lexington shall ban the sale of individual 16-ounce polyethylene terephthalate PET plastic water bottles. It is illegal to sell 16-ounce PET water bottles in the town of Lexington. When the town manager declares emergency, the sale of 16-ounce PET water bottles will be allowed. There will be enforcement of the law and fines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Will the proponent offer the motion to consider the article?
Mr. Moderator, thank you.
Ms. Steigerwald?
Mr. Moderator, my name is Jessie Steigerwald. I'm from Precinct 8, and I'm here with this special article asking for my town meeting members to join me in taking an important step locally that will help protect our health and the environment. The plastic contained in these bottles has been shown to be unhealthy. We have access to reusable bottles very easily, and it's time for us to take whatever steps we can to make a difference in our local environment and in the global environment. I urge you to vote yes and support this new law.
Thank you, Mrs. Steigerwald. I will now recognize the town meeting members who stand at the yes, no, or question microphones. And as we said earlier, recognize citizens who speak from the question microphone. At the yes microphone, Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Moderator, Larry Freeman, Precinct 1.
Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Moderator, through you, there's a plastic patch in the Pacific Ocean 3 times the size of France, all primarily made of single-use plastic items. In addition to that, making plastic water bottles takes 3 times the amount of water than the bottle itself will hold. I encourage all town meeting members to vote yes on this ban. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
I do not support this article.
Who is speaking, please?
Oh.
Would you please speak through the request to speak through the moderator?
Pardon me, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Taylor Singh, Precinct 6.
Thank you. Ms. Singh, I recognize you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Hydration is necessary for human survival. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, I do not foresee myself willingly visiting a public drinking fountain ever again. I will not support a ban on single-serving plastic water bottles, and I encourage my fellow town meeting members to join me in voting against this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Singh. At the question microphone, I recognize and know Ms. Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sarah Higginbotham, Precinct 5.
Ms. Higginbotham.
Thank you. I have a question through you, Mr. Moderator, to Ms. Steigerwald. I'm wondering how the town is going to really enforce this. I read the motion, but I feel like I need a little more detail. So if I could hear more about how this will be enforced in Lexington, that would be helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Steigerwald, is that a question you can answer?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you, in answer to that important question, this will be implemented by making sure that we don't allow the sale of these bottles. So people can have the bottles with them. If they have old bottles and they want to reuse them, there won't be any problem for them. But if they want to go to a store and buy them, they won't be available anymore. So we're going to focus enforcement on stores, and stores will be allowed to use up what they have and sell that. So they're not going to lose any money, but they can't order more bottles and sell them.
Ms. Higginbotham, does that answer your question?
Yes, I have a follow-up though. Is that okay?
Awesome. Yes.
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Moderator, my follow-up is I'm wondering how we're going to get the word out to everyone. What kind of publicity needs to happen for this to really be successful? Thank you.
And to whom are you directing your question, Ms. Higginbotham?
Through you, I directed to Ms. Steigerwald.
Thank you. Ms. Steigerwald.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So the information will be given out partially by debating it in open town meeting right now. We know that's really one important way for people to learn that there's a new law in town, because we're talking about it as we govern, and that's really important. We also hope the newspaper will cover tonight's meeting, and the town manager is going to have to help with that implementation and getting the word out. But we can all play a role in letting people know that we're doing the right thing for the environment in our community.
Ms. Higginbotham?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I feel my questions have been answered, but I still am not sure how I'm going to vote, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Higginbotham. And I recognize the person at the citizens microphone. Would you please identify yourself?
Mr. Moderator, I am Jim Austin, Lexington.
Mr. Austin.
I, as many people in town, use plastic water bottles and see that they are a necessity. While I urge my town meeting representatives to vote yes, this article needs more work to make it effective. We need more alternatives, such as encouraging sports and leisure use of multi-use water bottles. We need more water sources within town and public buildings. We need more trash receptacles for waste. We need more recycling receptacles for waste in order to eliminate buildup of trash. And perhaps we need higher fines. I think that this article needs perhaps an adjustment by the town meeting members to make it more effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Not seeing anyone standing at the yes, no, or question microphones from the representatives, debate is now closed. Does the proponent have any closing comments?
Mr. Moderator, thank you so much. I know you've heard a lot tonight, town meeting members. I really hope that you will vote yes. I hear the concerns about making sure that that we do other things in town to add more maybe bottle fillers. And I think those are things we could bring back at a future town meeting. I hope people will vote yes, as this is an important first step. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Steigerwald. We're now going to pause the listening audience, and that normally we would take a vote at this point, but Ms. Steigerwald, in her real voice, has a few remarks she'd like to make about timing.
As you're having debate take place in your classroom, it's a good thing to make sure that you allow the debate to continue. You can even encourage further debate, but once you know there's only 10 minutes left of your class, we would encourage you to move towards a vote, because the vote process will take some time, and you also want time to debrief before the class ends while it's still fresh in everyone's mind. So we'll move to a vote now.
Thank you, Ms. Steigerwald. Now, town meeting is back. Mock town meeting is back in session. And I will now call for a vote. And what we will do is all those in favor will signify when I give the cue by saying aye, and all those opposed will signify by saying no. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please signify by saying no.
No.
Well, the voice vote was not clear. So we will now have a standing vote. The town clerk will tally the votes. All those in favor, please stand. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do you have the count?
Yes.
Thank you. All those opposed, please stand. Please be seated. Thank you. Clerk, would you please tell us the count?
Mr. Moderator, 3 voters stood for yes, 1 voter stood for no.
Thank you. The majority having voted in favor, the motion passes. Now I will entertain a motion to dissolve this mock town meeting.
I so move.
Thank you, Ms. Steigerwald. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Any opposed? Seeing none, this mock town meeting is now dissolved. Thank you all very
Just for our listeners, when Mr. Austin shared some information about wanting this to be stronger, what could happen in your classroom is one of the people who hasn't spoken yet, who's a town meeting member, could propose a motion. So for example, I'm going to just ask if Ms. Higginbotham would just play that role. So what we heard was someone raised the concern that maybe the fines are not strong enough.
And perhaps we need higher fines. I think that this article needs perhaps an adjustment by the town meeting members to make it more effective.
So Ms. Higginbotham, if you can just seek to be recognized by the moderator and bring forward amendment, we can just show people what that looks like.
much. I see Ms. Higginbotham at the question microphone. Ms. Higginbotham.
Mr. Moderator, Sarah Higginbotham, Precinct 5.
Ms. Higginbotham.
Thank you. Through you, I am hearing that there's concern in the community about making this a stronger law. And so I would like to propose an amendment to have the first fine be $100. Am I able to make that amendment, Mr. Moderator?
Ms. Higginbotham, let's check with town council to see if that's in keeping with the motion.
So I'm going to play the role of town council right here. And what I'm going to do is make sure town meeting can see the bylaw as proposed on the screen. They need to know what they're voting on. And I understand that where we have the first offense would be a warning. We now have Ms. Higginbotham is saying she'd like it to be $100. And the question is that in the scope? Do people in this community have enough understanding of what you're debating that they would understand if this change were made? And I'm going to say yes, as the town council or lawyer for the town. This is very clear that this law includes other fines. The second offense was $100 and the third offense was $250. So it is clear that people in this community would expect that you as legislators might potentially entertain a motion to amend this bylaw to include higher fines or a higher fine for the first offense. So yes, it is within scope.
Thank you, Ms. Steigerwald. Debate is now open on the amendment, and we will have a fixed amount of time to discuss the amendment. And if you would like to, people want to say yes or no or raise a question about the, please go to the yes, no, and question microphones. So then they would disperse, and then we would vote on the amendment. And then if the amendment passes, we would vote on the amended article. If it fails, we would just vote on the original article.
Perfect. And students can really enjoy this. If depending how much time you give in class, they might want to make an amendment to an amendment. It depends on your class, and every year's group is different. But it's nice to be able to have that skill, and it allows people to try out thinking on their feet while they're there, actively listening to what their peers are saying. And it's a great way to model how we actually solve problems in local government. Thank you. Does anybody want to share something that you enjoy either about town meeting or about mock town meeting?
One thing that I love about being a part of Lexington's town meeting is that it's nonpartisan. I can be arguing or debating, rather, that's the better term, with one of my fellow town meeting members, where nationally we're totally in sync with our federal policies, but in town, there's no partisan politics. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, a Libertarian, unenrolled. We're talking about things that affect us personally, affect our families, affect our children, affect our neighbors businesses, our local businesses, and we leave all the donkeys and elephants behind us when we get to the floor of town meeting, and it's something that I truly adore and enjoy being a part of.
What I love most about town meeting is, even though I read all of the articles before town meeting, I absolutely love debate. I love hearing the opposing views. I love hearing questions that didn't cross my mind when I was reading articles. And I also love the fact that bringing a constructive way to disagree in mock town meeting is essential, and I'm glad that's being shown in the classroom, how you can disagree in a very constructive way.
Just want to chime in. I'm a newer town meeting member, and this was my first experience of annual town meeting just this year, 2021. As a participant, I have watched it actually as a citizen, but to really be involved in the whole thing, it's a very different experience. I would just say that it's what I've learned is that it only takes one or two voices or one or two opinions to really shift conversations, shift debate. And so the idea that, one voice doesn't mean anything, that's really not true here in Lexington. If you speak up, you will be heard. And there's really, it gives me hope for how local government can work.
Many people in town and perhaps across the country think that students in schools should be taught civics and are not how important civics, the education, learning about civics and what goes on in government in your own backyard is not given enough consideration in schools, and students graduate from high schools or across the country not knowing how government works. And what better way to get really involved and down and into it deeply than your own hometown. So one of the, as a town meeting member, what I really appreciate is be able to learn what's going on in my town. This is Lexington, and also to contribute to it. But it's the knowledge that I obtain is probably more important than what I actually give, although I've served on committees in the town. So mock town meeting is an opportunity for our 8th graders in Lexington to really see it in action, to practice it, and to practice what it's like to contribute to the town. And over the years of mock town meeting, I've been enormously impressed by articles that students have written. We're not modeling that here with what we're showing you, but when we do mock town meeting in town, the students have been asked to have been offered the opportunity to write articles that were considered by town meeting, and some of them are just amazingly on target and interesting and beautifully supported by them. So it's a great opportunity for students to learn about a significant part of government which is right at their doorstep.
I really like the mock town meeting to see the 8th graders, the energy they have, who they are, how they interact, they express their opinions. It's just fascinating to, at my age, to go back and see that interaction and how good they are. It's just really impressive. And sometimes even our moderator, Deborah Brown, has said that the 8th graders do a better job at town meeting than sometimes we do.
Well said. I love this idea of civic discourse, and that by modeling it and showing 8th grade students a format and this kind of what seems almost silly at first, the discipline of going through the moderator, because we all agree to have our debate in this kind of specific format, it really does allow the ideas to stand out instead of sort of the personalities or emotions, but instead the ideas get to be center stage. And I find that I do go in sometimes with an opinion, but an open mind. And I feel like it's a special space because it's well moderated that I can evaluate things. And I think in 8th grade mock town meeting, we've seen classrooms be able to have that same experience where students can come in having thought one thing or the other, but actually hear the ideas come out. And I love that they get to get up on their feet and then react to what people said. And I think it's why the amendments are so exciting when they start to realize, oh, I can kind of drive this car. This is a vehicle I can do. And I'd say in closing, we always say to our students here, we hope that by doing it now, when they get to high school and their student government, they'll recognize that they could get involved in their student government, or they can bring an actual citizen article to town meeting. And that's actually happened now in Lexington after many years of doing this. So it's pretty powerful stuff.